Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Mark Bishop show. It's been a little while, I know, but we've got some exciting guests coming up in the future. And this particular show is all about entrepreneurs and thought leaders and people who have really done something in their lives that maybe can motivate others. You know, so much negativity out there. This will be a positive show, you know, things you can do. But you know what? People also have wonderful stories to share that has some negativity. So you've got to be open to everything in life to be able to listen. And that's what we're hoping to do with this particular show anyway. My mover and shaker, actually, for this episode is a guy called Andrew Ackerman. He's the head of Reach Labs and an author. Was born in Tel Aviv to American parents, and he grew up in New York City in the metro area before getting his BA in economics and political science from Johns Hopkins University, and later his MBA in operations and marketing from Chicago Booth. Now, he lives in New York City with his 3 teenage daughters. I feel your pain a little there, Andrew. He speaks Hebrew fluently, as well as some Spanish, some French, Japanese, and JavaScript. Hey, I'd like to welcome you, Andrew. Welcome to the Mark Bishop Show, mate.
Hey, thanks for having me. Listen, you made me sound so interesting there. I'm excited to hear this episode.
Well, you can play it back as much as you like. It goes everywhere. You're a serial entrepreneur, right? Not a serial killer, but a serial entrepreneur. You turned early stage investor and innovation expert, investing, get this, folks, 70 startups over the past 2 decades. He's managed and built or advised multiple accelerators, incubators, and venture studios. And if that wasn't enough, he's consulted for large corporations on how to create effective corporate venture funds and other innovation strategies. Boy, what a mouthful. Am I correct, though?
Pretty much. There's a couple of things you left out, but I'm mostly teaching.
Well, I want to learn a couple of things here. When you say studios, coming from a media background, straight away I get all excited thinking studios. What are
totally different. Totally different. So, you'll stop me if I'm mansplaining anything, but in my world, most people know about venture capitalists, so guys that invest in tech startups, but there are a couple of steps before that often. Sometimes you go through an accelerator or an incubator where they'll take startups that are not quite ready to raise and help them get those last couple of yards across the finish line and then help them raise. Venture studio is a couple of yards even, back, maybe even all the way back to the other end zone, where an organization will go and try to come up with their own ideas. Then they'll find the teams to build them, and then they'll fund them. So there are 2 steps even earlier than an angel or a VC.
Okay. Well, they're needed, right? To do it correctly this day and age anyway. But I noticed straight away you said, for technical startups. That was the first thing. Venture capital for technical. Is everything else gone or what?
No, it's I get so wrapped up in my world. I say startup, and it's easy to forget that like the person that's going out there and opening up a restaurant, he's an entrepreneur. Like the woman who's going out there and like leaving a law firm, setting up her own shingle, that's entrepreneurship. That's a startup too.
Yeah.
It's just my part where it's like tech startup and they have to go code things and they can't make money for like a couple of years while they're building. Like that's a weird little niche within the greater startup ecosystem.
Right.
And there are things that like we have to do because unlike those other entrepreneurs, we don't have other choices. That's why I qualify it.
Okay. So what was it like for you to go from, a startup founder to an angel investor to accelerator operator?
Yeah. So at every stage, it's like, I think I know what I'm doing. And I was totally wrong. When you start off and you've had a successful startup, you're like, okay, I've learned a few things about how to build the startup. I should be able to recognize a good startup when I see it. Not totally true, right? I got really lucky on my first startup, but it was something totally outside of my area of expertise, like a pharmaceutical startup. And, now I look back at it and I'm like, Andrew, you had no business even investing in that space. You didn't know it. You just got really, really lucky. So the idea that because you were good at building it makes you good at recognizing a great idea, understanding that industry to know if it's an unsolved pain point, being able to assess the quality of the founding team It's like none of that's strictly true. You got to go learn that.
Right.
Being able to execute on a good startup helps, but it's only a small piece of what you need. And then I go from being an angel investor thinking, hey, I finally figured that part out, I think. And I've been doing some investments. Now I want to do something in an accelerator setting. But what I didn't realize was if I'm an angel investor and it's my own money and I might invest or I might not invest, I have like 1 or 2 good deals a month. That's really good. But when you're an accelerator, you're looking for a cohort of like 10 or even 15 startups for a 3-month program. And you open applications, and by the time you're supposed to like be done with all the applications and selected your startup, that could be 2 or 3 months. And to get to those 10 or 15, I needed 1,000+ applicants. So the ability to like source startups at that level, I'm like, well, I guess I didn't know that at all, right? So I had to learn all of that again. So every stage, I thought I had it, and then I realized, oh, I actually don't.
Oh, what I hear you saying is it's a numbers game like anything else.
Well, yeah. So that's absolutely true. The point I was making was that like every time I made that step up to the next level, I became aware of other skills that I needed to operate at that new level that I hadn't had from before. So you asked me, was it an easy transition? Like I made it, but in retrospect, I didn't know what I didn't know every time I took that step.
Yeah, but you know it all now. And what a way to do it, by actually being in it and doing it.
Did I tell you? 3 teenage girls, like know it all? No one believes that.
An adjunct professor of entrepreneurship and iSIM School of Business. What did you learn there? Share that with us.
Ooh, so that was one of those other situations where like you kind of think you get it and then you realize, oh, I'm missing these things. So, fast forward a couple steps in the career, I'm like, well, I lecture a lot of startups and a lot of entrepreneurs at different levels about what they need to do to build the business, what they need to do to like test if they have a problem that's worth building, not in that order, and then ultimately like raising money. So when I started writing the book and I met the dean of the school, and he said, hey, if that's the kind of book you're writing, you should teach the course and play test the early drafts of the book with actual students. And I said, well, that's great. How hard can it be, right? I already know what I want to say.
Right.
What I didn't realize is that in my world, if a startup goes out there and they raise their Series A or whatever amount of financing they're looking for, like, okay, that's great. They've succeeded. Or more importantly, when they exit, they definitely succeeded. But if I want to go teach entrepreneurs or students in a college setting, I can't tell them, great, come back to me in 7 months or 8 months or 10 months when you've raised a round, and then I'll give you a grade. Or come back, in 8 years when you've sold the company, and I'll give you an A+. So I had to figure out, like, how do I actually teach that in an academic setting and test it in not the real world? So that was a little tricky.
And the end result?
So the end result is I simulate a lot of that. So I actually work backwards from the kind of a deck you need to provide to an investor. And I let them build this deck. Everything they need to do from customer discovery all the way through to getting a financial plan. And they will pitch that to a bunch of my friends who are VCs at the end. That's kind of their capstone exercise. But then I had to also like create tests and exercises along the way to teach them. So it seems to be working pretty well. But that first time when like I kind of inherited somebody else's course and I looked at it and I had this like painful realization that I just couldn't teach the course that way and I had to build it all from scratch.
Yeah.
That was a rough couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks. Is that all?
Well, mind you, like that was just to get enough material that I could stay ahead of the course. I was writing my course decks during the course.
I understand. We got to feature your book too a little bit. This is, by the way, if you're watching this show, understand it's about business and entrepreneurs and all of that. If there's a book involved, we do show that in this particular show. But predominantly my other site with Nothing Like a Good Book that is geared at authors only, and that's all we do is books, talk about the books and everything. So go to that one, folks. Okay, nothinglikeagoodbook.com if you'd like to talk about books when it comes to that. But right now, my guest with Andrew is the managing director, which he is, of Dream Adventures. You launched and built both their EdTech and Urban Tech, ProTech, and construction verticals. So, all right, now explain to me in English.
So I always tell my entrepreneurs, like, you have to explain it to grandma. Like, get the jargon out. Like, you know, like a VC could probably follow you, but do you want them spending their compute on like figuring out what you're saying or figuring out what you're doing? So I always say pitch to grandma. So let's break that down. All right. The managing director, that was just my title. No problem. Dream Adventures, that's an accelerator and a VC fund. So it was what we were talking about before, at least initially. It was like, come in, sit your butt in a chair for 3 months. We're going to bring you speakers, pizza, and beer. And at the end of the 3-month period, we're going to put you on stage in demo day, and you're going to pitch your heart out and raise, $1 million, $2 million, whatever the amount is you're looking for.
Well, sounds like a Shark Tank, mate,
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Shark Tank. It's a common point.
I just get upset with them. They get greedier and greedier. You know what I mean? And I had some stuff I wanted to go in on, but they'd butcher me. They'd absolutely tear me apart. And that bloke with the bald head, the landy strip for mosquitoes, I tell you what, someday somebody's going to get over there and punch him in the nuts. I tell you.
Let me give you a little bit of like kind of the inside scoop there, right? So I don't know any VC or angel investor who would talk to a startup like they do. So maybe it's different in like, hey, I have an invention or I want to open up a restaurant. But in like the tech startup world where, I may have 30 startups in my fund and one of them can make the fund a huge success.
Right.
Silicon Valley Angels, SVA, was, if you took out Google from their first fund, it was like almost a 0 or a 1x return. But because Google was in it, like people made tons and tons of money.
Yeah.
So for us, maximizing the amount of money we make on any one transaction, any one deal.
Right.
No, if you have a Google level win, it doesn't matter if we had 4.5% of the company or 4.6%.
Right.
It doesn't matter to us. What's more important to us is that people like us and will take our money. So if you get a reputation for being, pardon my language, a dick, then the best startups just don't want to talk to you. So we would never treat a startup like that. That's just totally wrong vibe, which is one of the things that's part of the hate and the love-hate I have with Shark Tank.
I understand. Yet on the positive side, you see, I'm happy for people that get up, get a chance. Mm-hmm. Some ridiculous stuff, I don't know, but they're not silly. They do their numbers, but, good on them. It's their passion. It's their dream, and yet I see others get butchered. But
you know what? If you're a direct-to-consumer startup, that's free advertising. It doesn't matter if the deal happens.
Well, that's it. There's got to be something else. I think there's something else goes on behind the scenes. There's deals done and what have you.
Yeah, well, a lot of the deals don't go through. When they go into due diligence, they fall apart. But right. I would do it anyway. I would do it because the exposure, if I were doing a direct-to-consumer product.
Well, that's it. And, you never know who's going to see the thing. And there could be somebody, an angel investor sitting back on the couch and saying, you know what, that's got potential. I like that thing. Mm-hmm. I'll contact them, blow them, I'll get him.
Maybe.
You never know.
You never know.
Let's talk about your writing. 60 published articles for Fortune, Forbes, PropMoto, CRE Tech, Builders Online, Architect Magazine, Multifamily Executive. These are so diverse. Alley Watch, Ed Surge, the 74 million. Do me a favor, please. Explain what you'd be doing at all of those.
I really wasn't a great writer growing up. And it's sort of by chance during my first startup, no one else was going to do it. That's a common theme in startups. If you don't do it, it doesn't get done. So I ended up writing the newsletter, and it actually turned out that I enjoyed doing it. So then fast forward to when I was looking for all these startups, and I'm like, oh crap, I now need 1,000 applicants to get to my 15 startups.
Right.
What I realized is if I were writing these pieces, then I would actually have startups find that and come to me. So I started writing the pieces, both like the general startup press and for like the trade press. Like when I was looking for real estate or construction related startups, having pieces in Builders Online or on PropMoto, that would start getting people to come to me. So, I had the the push strategy, which is I'd go out there and I would get it, and I had my pull strategy where that those articles would be higher visibility for me.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool marketing, isn't it? Cost effective.
Yeah. Well,
I'd call that guerrilla marketing.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny, right? So it also was a way for me to be sure that I understood what I was talking about.
Yeah, I guess
I'm a
that.
firm believer, until you can teach somebody else something, you may not completely understand it.
Right.
So, I'd be able to write the thoughts down. It wasn't hard for me. And also, I was an early adopter of like speech to text. So you would see me on the New York City subway, with my phone here in the corner, just kind of muttering into it. And what I was doing was I was writing an article for Forbes, like right there. In fact, I wrote 80% of my book that way. Over several train rides. Okay,
now speaking of one's book, we're talking the Entrepreneur's Odyssey. Okay, so I guess this sort of led you in. I was going to ask you, why did you start writing, really? For that matter, this particular book, the Entrepreneur's Odyssey, and sort of when you think about it, it's sort of a natural for you, isn't it? After all you've done.
Yeah, so it was something I wanted to do for a long time. I wanted to do I wanted to write it down. It's like it's natural. Like I spend a couple of years diving deep into the startups. Like for 3 months, I am like once a week minimum spending an hour or two with them, understanding what they need to finish to get over that finish line and to be ready to receive funding.
Right.
So I learned over the years different ways to give advice, common mistakes, how to head them off at the past, how to help them learn from other people's mistakes rather than their own. So I always wanted to write it out, but there were a couple of things going on in the background. So number one is 0 time, so I couldn't do that for a while. And the other was I don't like writing what other people have written. So a lot of the how-to book for like how to do a startup, like they kind of been done. They weren't like, they were varying quality and they were all deathly boring. Like, they were all like ghost written by the same dude in the Midwest. It's like name drop, name drop, name drop, anecdote, anecdote, anecdote. Maybe here's a graphic of some sort, and then at the end 5 bullets for what you learned in that chapter. Okay. And if you just looked at the 5 bullets at the end and stapled those 20, 25 pages together, you were probably okay.
Right.
But I won't write stuff that I don't think is interesting for me to read. I won't write stuff that you can get anywhere else. So between lack of time and that, like, I don't want to be boring, I did nothing for like almost 10 years. And then it occurred to me, there was a book that I'd read in business school, and it was a novel about a guy that needed to turn around this printing plant in the Midwest, a book called The Goal. So if you went to business school in the late 80s or in the 90s, there's a pretty good chance you read that book.
Okay.
It's memorable because it was told as a story. Like to this day, if you talk about The Goal, people are like, oh, yeah, what's your Herbie? Meaning, what's your bottleneck? After a name of a character in the novel that was slowing everything down.
Right.
So all of a sudden, like I'm thinking about that, and then it kind of clicked because I had found that when I gave advice to startups, I could just give them the advice straight out, or I could tell them a story about another startup that was in a similar situation and what worked out for them. And the story was always more effective. Right? It was always more effective. I could say, hey, Mark, listen, you have a freemium model, right? You're giving it away for free, but there's other features that they can pay for. You're going to live and die based on the conversion rate, how many people upgrade to premium, to paid. So instead of just kind of guessing and building and seeing what happens, why don't you test it? Put a buy now page on, see who clicks it.
Right.
Now, I can give you that same advice, but say, hey, there's this other startup. They were a blog discovery platform. That's literally what they were. They knew that they needed at least 2% conversion from free to paid to have a decent business model. And what they were going to do is they were just going to keep programming and building all those features. And when they were ready, they were going to roll it out and flip the switch and see what happened. And we said, hey, guys, by the time you're done building it, you're going to be right at demo day. What happens if the numbers aren't good? And they're like, I don't know. So we said, why don't you put up this page? They click buy now. You could put a big boom, coming soon, come back later, just keep using the free product. But at least you know what percentage of people click. I'm like, that's a good idea. So they come back next week, like crestfallen. We're in trouble, right? we're nowhere near a 2% conversion. We're at like 0.2, 0.1, 0.2.
Right.
What do you want to do about it? I was like, well, there's no way we can optimize up from there to 2. So we're going to take it in a different direction. There's like one part of our platform that people really seem to love. We're going to build a whole new business around that in the 7 weeks we have left. Is that okay? And we said, of course, I'd rather have you try something new than go down this blind path.
And well, just a matter of interest, how much money would have been up front for this?
Usually at that point we put in 25 or 50, but here's the kicker, right?
Right. That's what you call seed money.
Yeah, pre-seed even. But here's the kicker. Okay. That company, that had we let them go in the direction they were originally going to go, would be a 0. You'd never know of them. But because they did this and they tested it in a week, that company is now SeatGeek. And that company is worth well over $1 billion.
Well, he stoned the crows. Good on him. Yeah. So
but here's my point, Mark, right? Which version of the advice was more compelling to you? The, hey, you should test your conversion factor, put up a cheap page, or hey, this is a company this is a unicorn, right? $1 billion company that almost wasn't. I mean, in my experience, the story hit home because all the founders could see themselves in that position. They could see themselves in the story. And in a way, it gave them permission to admit that, like, if they needed to test this, I need to test it. And it was memorable to them. So, oh my God, I can tell all the story about what it takes to make a good startup, but I can do it like the Goal did. Right. With a fictional startup, taking them from idea all the way through until they raise their round of financing. And along the way, I embed all the advice.
Good idea.
That story. So when that clicked, it just happened to click at a time when I was transitioning between different jobs. And I said, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it.
Good on you. That's success. I love that. So, I mean, the book itself, it's described as lean startup meets the Alchemist. So is this textbook disguised as a novel, would you say, to share what it takes and what it feels like? I mean, to take an idea to fund its startup, would that be fair?
Yeah, no, that's a fair description. I use that other description because, yeah, if you went to business school in the 80s and 90s, you know the goal. If you didn't, you have no idea what we're talking about. So a good friend in PR says, no, you're describing it all wrong. It's like lean startup meets the Alchemist, right? That works. And it seems to. So it's really, you nailed it, by the way, when you called it a textbook disguised as a novel. It's for everyone. On the one hand, students learning entrepreneurship in a university or business school. That's the course I teach. I use my own book. And all the way through to like a guy sitting or woman sitting in a cubicle and like, man, this is a painful problem. I think I can do this better. Do I quit my day job and take the plunge? So either end of the spectrum and everything in between, like doing it right now. I don't want to mess up my startup. Please let me learn how to do this without tripping and falling.
But I ask you, as a novel, why as a novel?
Well, because the stories are memorable, right? That's the whole point. Here, I'll give you an analogy, and it's going to sound kind of weird, but sit with it for a moment.
I want to ask you yet, so
go ahead.
All right. No. Give me the analogy.
So think about every religion known to man. And the religions really, there's a lot of thou shalt not. But do any of them start with like, hey, Mark, here's what you can do and can't do? They all start with a story. They're all embedded within a story because that's how we process. That's how we remember things. And like, I'm not saying that like, I'm at that level of like any Bible or Testament you might get to, but like, that's what works. So of course you put it in a novel because that's what people will remember. That's what's going to hit home.
Right. Well, okay. I'll accept that. Reach Labs. Funny name, Reach Labs. Who is it? What do you specialize in?
Sure. So when I left Dream It was right around COVID hit, and they had decided like we're not going to do real estate related or construction related tech anymore because we think it's a bad time. Totally wrong choice. The reason Reach is called Reach is because the RE stands for real estate. So the National Association of Realtors, which is a trade group, trade association for real estate agents. They saw the writing on the wall. They're like, well, we've seen what happened to travel agents. We don't want that to happen to our people. How can we prevent it? So they set up a VC fund, venture capital fund called Second Century Ventures.
Hang on, let's rewind for those that mightn't understand. that particular statement. We don't want it to end up like the travel agents. What do you mean by that?
When was the last time you used a travel agent versus went on a website and did it yourself?
Yeah, a long time for me, but I have noticed that more and more individual working from home, freelance companies maybe trying to get you to do cruises or this or that or this or that. So it's not so much your big local travel agent anymore that you trot a lot into and sit down and plan the trip with everything.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be that there is a lot more freelance out there to get the business, or you get on and do it yourself.
Yeah, I would say, and I don't have the stats, but I'll
I plan it all for you.
well, I was going to say, I will bet you good money that if you went to, I guess like the late 80s, early 90s,
Right.
and looked at the number of people who were doing residential travel agency type work, we probably have fewer than 10% of those jobs anymore.
Yeah.
Like everyone's going on Orbitz and Kayak or directly on, JetBlue and doing it themselves. The corporate travel, that's more complicated. You still have people there. And the concierge level where it's like, hey, I just want you to plan the whole trip for me because I just want to offload that. That's still there. But the broad bottom and middle of that market, gone, automated away. So, there was a lot of talk, like, do we still need real estate agents anymore? Should I just buy and sell my own my property? Like the data are out there.
Yeah, it's a bit more than that. We know that.
Yeah.
It's a bit more.
It's a reasonable. It was a reasonable fear for an association who needs to look out for their members to have.
Right.
That's their job. Their job is to look out for their members. So sometimes they lobby Washington to look out for them. Sometimes they need, their periscope over the horizon to see what tech is doing.
Right.
So they stood up a VC fund, and that was actually a brilliant move because if you have money, startups come to you. So you'll figure out, you'll see the stuff that you need to see. And then the VC fund stood up these accelerator programs. And there are 8 of them around the world now where they do kind of what I talked about. We did, only slightly later stage startups. Initially focused really very narrowly on stuff that touched real estate agents, but now much more broadly in the real estate and even construction sector. So as I'd left DreamIt, I'd begun talking to the guys at Reach and Second Century, and they're like, this is a natural fit. Come over, do some stuff with us.
Okay. And it's going, how is that leveling now? Is it getting through, do you think?
Yeah. So the programs are doing really well. The portfolio is doing really well. They're actually raising another fund. So all that's great. I was brought on to build the platform. So remember we talked, I do the investing stuff, but I also do innovation platforms. So their need was, hey, there's all these realtor associations around the world, particularly around the US. Some of them are quite big and they're in cities that have good startup ecosystems. There's got to be some way to leverage that to bring even more startups into the fold, but not by running another accelerator program, because that's a lot of work. So we came up with something called Reach Labs, which was a protocol or a process that we would teach different organizations about how to find startups and present them to their members, because that's also what their job is. Hey, we found these great labor-saving startups for you. We found these startups that help you can close more deals. So they would then bring those startups in, present them to their members, and then, as they found really good startups, they could filter up into the accelerator and then into the VC funds portfolio. So I built about, I think, 16 labs, around the country primarily,
right,
in about 4 years. And now it seems like, the ones that are up and running, they're happy, they can kind of run on their own.
Right.
Pretty much everyone who wants to launch one has done it, more or less. So we're actually transitioning that to a kind of, great, it's yours, run with it kind of platform.
So what is it? A hands-on every day, right? Who's doing what in it? Realtors are doing what in this?
So the way it typically works is usually the head of a realtor association will decide, I really want to do this. I want to have this as a service that I offer my members. So they would reach out to us. I'd have the conversation. I'd explain to them how it worked. They'd be like, we're on board. And they would dedicate 1 or 2 people from their organization to spend 2, 3, 4 hours a week working on this in addition to their other responsibilities. And what I would do over the first 3 months is I'd meet with them weekly and I would teach them, here's how you look for startups. Here's how you assess a startup. So here's how you decide if this is the kind of startup that you want to show your members versus no, not ready or not really any good. And then that would culminate in planning, and then we called it an innovation showcase, an hour plus or minus, where they would bring 4 startups to their members as its own event or as part of a larger event.
Okay, so what I'm seeing here is they're going to need to work somewhere, these startups. They've got to set up either an old factory or a nice renovated house or something where they're going to be commercial. So it's more commercial than anything else.
Not exactly. So the startups, these aren't like 2 guys with an idea. These are startups that already exist. Now, they may be very early. They may have product, but not a lot of revenue, but they exist. So they have their own offices. They're working out at home, whatever it is. That's irrelevant to the program. This is literally just, we found you. We like you. Here's an event on March 23rd. Do you want to come in and present? It'll be a quick presentation followed by Q&A. But the opportunity for the startup is you can get in front of a couple hundred potential customers.
Interesting.
And the opportunity for their members is you might find a tool that makes you more money.
Interesting. I got an idea. I'll talk to you about it after this, after we're done. Well, you've mentioned hundreds of, if not thousands of startups. I mean, do they always take your advice?
No, of course not. One of the things we look at when we look at a startup that we might invest in, we call it coachability, right? Is this the kind of person who has that right middle way between open to advice and also thoughtful and, I won't say skeptical, but thoughtful and methodical about testing the advice before they act on it. Otherwise, if you have some founders who are like, this is how I'm going to do it. Thank you for your advice, but I'm just going to ignore that because I'm sure I know better.
Right.
Those are bad. And on the other side, you got people like, that's awesome, Mark. I'm going to do that right now. And then they talk to me tomorrow and they're like, oh, Andrew, that's awesome. I'm going to do this instead. They're like a weather vane. You don't want either of those. You want that happy medium. And this is how I describe it. They should have well-reasoned but loosely held opinions.
Yes. You focus on real estate, but are traditional small business, startups, are they different from tech startups?
They are different in some ways, and they're the same in some ways. So the commonalities, before you do something, you should think about and be able to test as many of your assumptions, many of your make or break guesses
about
your business before actually doing it. That's one of the key mistakes entrepreneurs of all types make. They get excited, they jump right in. Let's say you're selling something online, right? So you're a traditional business, but you just sell it online through Shopify or through Etsy or something.
Right.
It's a really cool, glasses that let you see infrared. I'm making this stuff up. But it's not a tech startup, it's a product. Or maybe it's a necklace, who knows? Well, one of the things, probably the number one thing that's going to make or break your business is what's your cost of customer acquisition? What's it going to take for you to bring somebody to the website? What percentage of those people are going to put something in the shopping cart? What percentage of them are going to complete the sale or drop out? How big is that shopping cart going to be? Those are key pieces of information. And if you can't bring customers to your site cost effectively, you don't have anything. It doesn't matter how good the product is. Now, you can model this in Excel and guess some of those numbers. That's where a bad entrepreneur is like, great, I'm going to go do it and see what happens. A good entrepreneur would go in there and say, before I build anything else, even before I make the product, I'm going to mock it up. I'll put it on this Wix page. And then if anyone buys it, I'll just say, sorry, we're out of stock. But at least I'll know. I'll put I'll put $100 on Google AdWords or a couple $100 on Facebook ads. And I'll understand what's my cost per click. What's my ROI on that spend?
Right.
And if the numbers make sense, then I'll build it. If the numbers don't make sense and I can't fix it, I'm not going to do it. That's what I mean by how far can you get with little or no money before you take the plunge with all your time and savings?
Yeah. You're spot on. You still need that bit of dough, though, to even do those, tests that you were talking about and everything else. You've got to risk that. That's part of it all.
Yeah, listen, $100, so you don't go out to dinner one night.
So listen, now I want to get this book off here. Where can you buy it? Where is it sold?
Sure. So the best thing is just go to Amazon. It's there. Get the Kindle or the paperback version. There's a hardcover version that's only for libraries, and it doesn't have the really cool cover, which I worked hard on.
So this I've got valid until September. You sent me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going to use that.
You know,
if you want, I'll get you another one, and we can.
That's all right. But this was the code, and there was a deal, so I hope you sold a few. But the book itself, right? The book itself is going to explain a hell of a lot of what you've been talking about, right?
Exactly.
That's the most.
All these things are from the book. Like all these things are advice that I've given startups, just embedded in the back and forth between this entrepreneur.
Right.
And the angel investor who becomes his mentor, takes him under his wing.
All right. Now, what's the difference between, well, I was going to say, to get into corporate venture, what's the difference between, or how is it different from traditional VC?
The flip answer is it usually sucks. Sorry. No, so I'll tell you, the corporate VC is tricky because you have to do all the things a regular VC has to do. Like you have to get your name out there. You have to find startups. You have to be able to assess them. You have to be able to convince them to take your money and not someone else's money. Like you have to do all those other things. But then you're also supposed to somehow be strategically aligned with the mothership to find the kind of startups that it cares about. And then you have to operate within an environment that in some cases feels like it's setting out to ambush you. Right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say, Mark, you're at a corporate venture fund for Hallmark. I don't know why I came up with Hallmark. Let's say they've got a VC fund and they want to do something in the greeting card space. So
the movie space is good, actually. Hallmark.
Yeah, okay, let's say you're with Sony and they want to do an accelerator on the movie business.
Right.
Not accelerator. It's called a VC fund. Let's say you're awesome and you get really great startups and they're doing really well and some of them exit and it's tons of money. Now you're probably on salary and getting a bonus. That's nowhere near what you would make in a traditional VC. A traditional VC gets 20% of the upside. So if you're good, in 2 or 3 years, you're going to quit that job, go into traditional VC, or maybe raise your own fund. So if that's the way they've structured the corporate venture fund, they're guaranteed to lose the rising stars and to keep the people who are like B players or C players.
Okay.
So, if you really want your corporate venture fund to work at least as well as a VC, you got to solve the compensation issue. You have to compensate them as if they're a VC fund.
Yeah. Well, the book itself, are there any inside jokes in there? Any Easter eggs?
There's tons of Easter eggs in there. So a couple of them are names, right? So the mentor in the book, his name is Jason. Now, I did that as an homage to one of the OG of New York venture, in New York angel scene, John Asen. So John Asen is Jason. He was an older gentleman, kind of like crotchety grandpa, but like really good at what he did. And I had actually gone to Korea with him on an investment trip once. So it was kind of road trip with grandpa, but it was very, very cool. And I did that to solve a problem. My problem was I'd written all these articles, but they're short articles and they're all in my voice. But if I'm writing a book, the book kind of sounds boring if everyone sounds the same. So in order to give each character a unique voice, I would visualize somebody else saying it. So I'd visualize John saying these things like, boom, that's how I'm going to write it. Okay. And for the founder, there was a founder who had that like perfect, unflappable, like well thought out, but loosely held opinions. And I'm like, great. Anytime I need the founder, Marcus, to say anything, it's actually going to be this guy, Kofi, who I was thinking of. Okay. And that's actually why in the book, the character is black, not because I wanted to be particularly woke about it. It's just because that's who I was visualizing in the movie of the book that I was playing in my head so that I could write better. And in fact, there's a little Easter egg in there. The founder's son, who he talks to on the subway, and they actually end up going into like different revenue models that the subway could use. The founder's son is named Kofi. So that's an Easter egg just for that one guy.
Right. So there's going to be a giggle in there. So this book here, this Entrepreneur's Odyssey, does it also apply to, the traditional small business startups?
Yeah, the first 2/3 of it are very applicable. So the first 2/3 about testing your assumptions, I call it sometimes the index card website, right? You can sketch out what you want your thing to do on paper and go out and use that to test it before you actually build. Like all of that applies. Thinking about different revenue models, all of that applies. Where it gets very specific for a tech startup is when we get into how they raise money. So if you're running a consultancy or a law firm, you probably don't even need to raise money. You can fund it out of revenue, right? You leave, you've got a couple of clients, you're kind of good from day one, and then you grow it. If you're opening up a car wash, you can get a small business loan from a bank because, hey, it's equipment, they know how it all works. But if you're doing a tech startup, you can't get any of that stuff, right? You don't have hard assets to back the loan. You can't generate it out of revenue generally because you've got to go spend time building it first. So the only alternative you have, the least worst alternative for a tech startup, is to get venture capital money or angel money. So because that is very specific to the tech startup world, that's not really going to apply to a traditional small business. Doesn't make sense for them to raise money that way, and they don't really fit that model. So if you're thinking about opening up a dry cleaning store, you can stop around chapter 24 or 25.
But that sort of says to me, look, a one-off army guy like me, all by my little self, thousands of us out there as entrepreneurs, as single, person businesses trying to scale and build, right, with ideas. Now, I may have a brilliant tech idea, amazing, worth millions. How do I get it off the ground? No one's interested unless they can visualize it and see it. So it's got to be somebody, a VC that appreciates tech, right? Knows where it's going.
You, Mark, would continue reading to the end because that's how you would raise that first round of financing. This kind of weird dynamic in the world. It used to be easier to raise money with less. And let me unpack that for you. So thinking back to the dawn of time, at least as far as I'm concerned, like the 90s, if you wanted to build a website, brand spanking new, you had to buy your server and you had to actually put it in a case in your office, preferably a cooled case so there doesn't overheat.
Yeah, right.
And then over time, you could put that in a remote hosting site, not AWS, Globix, where you go in there, you go down to the basement of their building to be row upon row of cases. You'd find yours, you'd slide your server in there. And I remember very well the CTO of my first startup, when we got our third blade, he's like, damn it, Andrew, I really should have labeled these cables. I don't know what I can unplug without taking the site down.
Yeah, right.
And then you fast forward 5 years, and then there's AWS, Amazon Web Services. You don't even need your own server. You can just rent fractional server capacity from AWS. And now you've gotten to the point where you don't even need to write your own code. You can pull down snippets of code on GitHub. You can vibe code using AI tools. Or there's a lot of other helper apps which you can connect to. I don't have to build that. That exists. I'm just going to plug into it.
Right.
What that means is what cost $5 million just to get out the door in 1995, meaning I could go with a business plan, nothing built, and say, hey, I can't do anything more because I just can't.
Yeah, you need to see money to get off the ground. Yeah.
But fast forward 5 years even, I could get a lot further. I only need $1 million to do it. And fast forward another 5 years, I could do it in 500,000. Fast forward another couple of years, I could do it in 50,000. And we're at the point now where you could get a good working version of a lot of sites up with zero, just some sweat equity.
Right.
Now, the other edge of the sword, though, is now that you can do that, Mark, I, as the VC, want you to be further along before I give you money. At all points, I wanted to see that you could get as far as you could.
Right.
Or asking. It's just now you can get a lot farther, which means now I want more, we call it traction.
Yeah.
Before I write you the check.
Yeah, of course. Well, I have to do that with clients, when I have a business. It's called podcasting for profit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm dealing with corporations where I produce and create shows for them for their own business that in turn helps them in their business to business, get new deals and keep top of mind the clients they've already got. And and do other things. And, by the time you market the whole thing for them, yeah, it's a lot in it. Have you made mistakes? Because we're going to close soon, but what were some of the early mistakes that you made when you first started to get investing into startups?
I have made a lot of mistakes, both when I was building my own startups and when I invested. And the only virtue I can claim is none of the mistakes I made when I was building a startup killed the startup, right? They were low enough stakes and I was able to kind of recover from them. And I made tons of mistakes in the investment side. And again, the only virtue there is like, I'm in a weird business. Like if a third of my portfolio goes to zero in a year, I'm doing really well, right? Like we just need a couple of big winners to make the fund. And we expect a good chunk of our companies just not to work at all. So some of the mistakes I made, you asked about the investing side. The number one mistake that I made was not trusting my gut around the founder. I was so worried about missing out that like I'd be like, yeah, I don't know if he actually it's a little bit hard to coach the guy, but man, I love the product and man, it's a huge potential. Like we'll make it work.
You make it work.
That has never worked out. That has never worked out. I've regretted it every single time. And now I will walk away from an awesome product with good traction if I don't feel like I can work with the founder.
Well, how about that, huh? So personal human feelings come into it, right?
Pattern recognition. Like you got to trust your gut. There's something there,
right,
that it's picking up on. Now, not right away. Like you can't trust your gut. Like, oh, it's my first startup. Trust my gut. No, your gut's a moron, right? We got nothing there. But when you've done it a bunch of times and you start to get that pattern and your gut's like, this is going to bite you in the butt eventually. Right. Sooner or later, something will happen that'll hit that weak point. So just trust it.
To contact Andrew, and in leaving, just give us one little bit of conventional wisdom, perhaps, to people watching who...
Sure. Conventional wisdom about building a startup. I want you to get as far as you can on the resources you can. If you're coming to me and you're asking me for money and I can come up with 10 things that you can do that you don't need my money for, that's a bad look for you. So you got to go think about what can I do for $1? What could I do for $100? What could I do for free? And just work your way down all those assumptions, right? Model your business in Excel or Google Sheets. Look for the 1, 2, maybe 4 or 5 maximum variables that if you're off by a little bit, your business is dead, and try to be super creative about testing them. Like, what can I do to move this from a guess to a proven assumption?
Okay. Well, testing is critical. The old doesn't change though. The old SWOT analysis and everything is still
always a good first pass. Always a good starting point.
Good starting point. Okay.
Yeah. We have a slightly different way that we look at it. Like the startup pitch deck, depending on how you look at it, something like 15 or 16 slides. And those are all the links in a chain that we're looking for.
Right.
So things like, is it a problem that is widespread, very painful and frequent? Does your solution solve the problem? Is the market, big enough? How are you charging for it? What's the competition look like? How much traction? Those are the things that we're looking for, but you can build that up pretty quickly, or at least you can like sketch it out and see what you're missing and then kind of do the research you need to figure all that out before you go too far down the path.
Wise advice. Very good. So this is all where you can contact Andrew. I put it all up because it's too much for putting the fonts, but you'd get dizzy looking at them all. So this is just one focus. All these here, but of course, I'm a great believer in the good old email. Did I put that up?
Yeah, I was going to say like the easiest thing for people to remember.
I think I did.
Go to my website. It's Andrew B. Ackerman, B as in boy.com. You go there. There's a lot about me.
There we go.
Yeah, if you still need to get in touch with me, like there's a way to get in touch with me there. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
Right. Well, the beauty of podcasting, of course, is this is pre-recorded and then it's going to be on YouTube and a lot of other platforms around the place. You could always play it again and get the numbers or whatever you need to do. But listen again, he gives good advice. And I don't know, it's been very interesting, mate.
Thank you.
I think back, I've done things the wrong way, trying to raise funds for companies and businesses, great ideas with partners and friends. And all sorts of things, but there's always the brick wall. And usually they want a lot of skin in the game. And if you're in a position in life where you can't do that right then, but you've got the idea is fantastic or the potential is there, what you're talking about is what is needed before anybody's going to
absolutely,
to support you, I guess. But there's still, is it tougher now than ever to get money to back you for an idea, business, something you want to get off?
I get asked that a lot, and I usually tell entrepreneurs, "Hey, don't bother with that, right? You didn't have the option of doing this 5 years ago, and in 5 years it'll be irrelevant. Don't worry about that. Good startups will get funded. You just worry about making sure that you're actually attacking a problem that's worth solving,
right?
And then just make the best, do the best way of communicating that to investors possible."
See, that
it'll be harder. It'll be easier.
To me, what you said, a problem that is worth solving. Now that eliminates a lot of startups, a lot of ideas, a lot of great sweaty nights where your baby could be successful. It could. But hey, that seems to be the catalyst. Is it going to do any good? Who's it going to help?
Yeah.
I mean, big deal. It's a great idea or this or that. And I think it's this or that. But hang on a minute. What's it going to do?
And it might just be you, right? It's got to be a widespread problem. And they have to feel it as intensely as you feel it. And ideally, it has to happen a lot, right? Frequently. Like if you're not hitting at least 2 or all 3 of those dimensions, I call them the 3 dimensions of pain, the odds are it'll mean a lot to you and not to the rest of the world. And that's not the kind of thing we back.
3 dimensions of pain.
Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like a good title for a book.
A chapter of one of the books, anyway.
It's a chapter in your book. Fascinating stuff.
Show me the pain. Actually, what do I call it exactly? I think maybe I get kind of punny on the chapter name. So hold on. I called it. What do I call it? Oh, Tell Me Where It Hurts. That's what that chapter is called.
All right. There we go. All right. Listen, it's been Andrew. How about that? We've gone nearly an hour. Wow.
It happens.
They say these days, 7-10 minutes, you're gone. I don't think so. That's not what this is about. I've seen some podcasts still run at 2 hours. At the end of the day, if it's been informative or interesting to people and they've got nothing else better to do, they'll be in a position to just sit and watch it. But of course, I take the audio from this, and that goes out to all the big podcast platforms, so it can be heard at the same time. And your favorite podcast platform for different people who can't see the vision and so on. But thank you for coming on. It's been, stick around. Do me a favor, don't leave. Stay there just to make sure that I've totally download your side of things.
No worries. And by the way, don't worry about it being an hour, because everyone under 30 is going to play this back at 1.5 speed. So then it's only 40 minutes.
Well, there's plenty of stuff in it too. By the time I chop it up and edit it for shorts, to go everywhere, there's lots of stuff. But good luck with the book too. I hope that,
Thank
you. And it,
I'm going to stick on until you tell me that you got the audio back clean.
Oh yeah, we'll do all of that. It's the cloud part I like to download and make sure. And otherwise, I'd have to call you up and say, do me a favor, get back on and just sit there till it downloads.
No worries.
All righty, not a problem. I am going to say goodbye to you. Thank you so much. Well, there you go. See, this is the game. Take this off. I never put personal phone numbers usually on the show. All right, I try to put the business phone numbers only on the show. And but if that ever happens, that's good that I'm told to do that. Now, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I found it fascinating, and I do ask you to rate the podcast if you would. It helps more people to find us in a very competitive market. And, right here on YouTube, you subscribe to the Mark Bishop Show, and we'll get more talented and interesting winners to come. I got some fabulous people lined up. And, I'm looking for, how you became successful, what it took. Thought leaders, people who've created something that can definitely help others. But if it's going to be books and you want to be promoted book-wise, you need to understand you've got to go to nothinglikeagoodbook.com. That's the site for authors all across America. Okay? So it was a pleasure having you, and thank you so much. We'll see you soon.